This weapon is easily the most forgotten weapon in Helldivers 2. For quite some time, it has floated under the player's radar and is rarely talked about, and it even has less than a 2% pick rate. But why has it been forgotten? My name is Red Monster Thing, but you can call me Red. And today, I wanted to talk about the Blitzer and why you've probably never heard of it or forgot about it. Now, a quick disclaimer, I have some criticisms for this gun, but while that may be true, I also really enjoy using this weapon from time to time. Rest assured, I want to give you guys an honest evaluation of this weapon and how good it actually is. First things first, how has the Blitzer been forgotten? And why is it the most forgotten? Certainly, there are other weapons that are even less popular, right? Well, in order to answer these burning questions, we first need to look at how to acquire this weapon. The Blitzer can be found in the Cutting Edge Warbond on the 3rd page for a whopping 80 medals. And for those of you who recognize this warbond isn't exactly popular like Democratic Detonation or anything else that uses explosive weaponry. It's got a hyper niche armor passive and an armor aesthetic that is arguably pretty ugly. And yes, I know that is a subjective opinion, and maybe some of you like how goofy these armor sets look. But despite it not being popular, I actually won't say that this is a bad warbond. Just for its value alone, you get 3 armors and 6 weapons, where most modern warbonds give you 2 armors and 5 weapons. So, just for the bang for your buck, this warbond is already higher value than most new warbonds. To be completely honest, I'm a little bit perplexed here, and I don't believe the warbond value alone is the reason why nobody seems to remember the Blitzer. This warbond was also the second ever warbond to be released in Helldivers 2, which likely aided in player forgetfulness because this warbond is over 2 years old now. However, I don't believe that this is the reason, because certain weapons like the sickle, Punisher plasma, stun grenades, and even the dagger have all been discussed relatively recently. The sickle and the Punisher aren't exactly unpopular weapons, and while this is a good start, it isn't conclusive enough to explain why players keep forgetting this weapon exists, or at the minimum, acknowledging its existence. So now, let's talk about pick rates. While I don't believe Helldive.live is the most accurate source, the information provided is still useful. Yes, 2% for Helldivers 2 isn't actually all that low when you think about it. Most weapons in the game are actually below 1.5%. But the ironic thing here is that I often see more content being made about weapons with low pick rates because of how shocking or sensationalized the content may be. For example, did you know that the Purifier has a 0.6 pick rate on the bugs? I've seen so many videos about the Purifier, and it is legitimately one of the most powerful primary weapons in the game. So part of me is extremely confused. If the Blitzer is being brought to missions more than something like the Purifier, why is nobody talking about it? To answer this, let's look at some of its stats. Now, the Arc 12 Blitzer deals 250 damage with 175 durable damage. And after all things considered, it's actually pretty decent durable damage. It's even medium armor pen, so naturally, you'd assume that the damage is all around pretty consistent. But the Blitzer has a unique firing pattern, and just like all arc weapons, auto-targets enemies and shoots at center mass, which in simple terms means you can't actually aim with this weapon. It fires in a wide spread where each arc does 50 damage and 35 durable damage. Kind of like an arc shotgun, which when you're up against a horde will drastically change how effective this weapon is. Obviously, just like any shotgun, you only deal full damage if every component hits your target. So if these arcs hit multiple enemies instead of focusing one at a time, you will be dealing much less damage. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. But we should still talk about its ammo, which it doesn't have any. It's straight up infinite. And I mean that in the truest sense. It doesn't overheat or overcharge. There is no heatsink to replace. You actually have infinite ammo with this weapon, even if you continue to hold down the trigger. And this is one of the Blitzer's greatest strengths, since even with its considerably low damage, at the bare minimum, you are never going to worry about resupplying ammo with it. But this infinity does come at a steep cost. The weapon has a very slow fire rate, and I assume that this is for balance reasoning. but at the same time, it can make this gun very unappealing. It has great overall handling stats, but they kind of don't matter since this gun literally tracks enemies for you. Combined with a low damage, a low fire rate, but you have infinite ammo, I think there is grounds to reasonably assume that maybe the reason why this weapon isn't talked about is that it's a bit boring? Though, please sit with me for a moment, because boring does not mean it's a bad gun. As I said earlier, I use this gun pretty frequently, but I can't shake the feeling that this gun still has more good reasons why it's so forgotten. Before I get into my final points, I want to kindly ask you to leave a like or a comment on the video. Let me know why you guys think players have forgotten this weapon, and also, if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. Once we hit 100k subscribers, I'll tell you what my favorite color is. Now, when you actually play with this weapon, you'll notice that even with its medium penetration, it feels incredibly inconsistent against bigger targets. In a lot of cases, this weapon will still target enemies it can't actually penetrate, which is kind of frustrating when you consider the fact all other arc weapons have AP4 at the bare minimum. So because of this, you'll be focusing mainly on chaff and medium units. And well, the Blitzer is amazing at clearing chaff. One feature I failed to mention earlier is its stagger. This weapon has almost the same stagger as the Punisher and the M90A, making it an extremely easy to use crowd control option. And speaking of, one of the many factors this gun excels at is ease of use. Because it's not exactly challenging to use this weapon. The only real limitation is range, and if your line of sight is blocked. And while I think this is great supporting evidence so far, I think we should evaluate how the Blitzer performs on each faction. For the bots, this weapon single-handedly has to be by far the worst primary weapon choice in the game. Because not only does this weapon fail to deliver heavy damage, it can only realistically target enemies within a 25-meter range. Even other shotguns, like the Breaker Spray and Pray, have a much easier time against the bots, since at least the Breaker Spray and Pray can kill things at medium range with a full choke. The arcs are fine at killing troopers, and it can stun Devastators for a brief moment. But killing a Devastator is such a big time commitment, since the Blitzer targets center mass, and you can't hit those sweet weak spots. The stun doesn't even last long enough for you to properly crowd control a group of Devastators. By the time you switch targets, the one you just shot will get back up and start shooting at you. But the worst part is that when you are attacking Striders, it targets center mass, and their armor is heavy, so you are dealing literally 0 damage, and you are unable to aim at weak spots. Against the bots, the Blitzer desperately needs heavy armor pen, both for consistency and relevance on the automaton front. It would genuinely fix a lot of the targeting issues. Against squids, it's a bit underwhelming, since it's both underpowered and overpowered. You don't exactly need 250 damage to kill a Voteless, so it's kind of overkill for Voteless, but it's not powerful enough to properly deal with Overseers, especially flying Overseers. Against flesh mobs, it takes too long, and don't even think about using this against Harvesters or the Appropriator subfaction. But against the bugs is where the Blitzer gets all of its use. The stun effects and stagger all help against the onslaught of bugs. It's fantastic at killing hunters and all lighter units, and it's even a very competent option against the Predator strain. Seriously, its crowd control effects are extremely powerful considering you will never run out of ammo. But what exactly does this tell us? Well, it's not very good on 2 out of the 3 factions, which means it's kind of underwhelming, but it's extremely good on the bug front and even the Predator strain subfaction. However, I have a theory, and that is because this weapon's greatest sin is that its entire being is a little bit boring. And I do mean that with the best intentions, because once again, I don't think boring is bad, but it's sensible to me that other content creators avoid talking about this weapon because of how easy it is to use. On the bug front, it's just as easy as holding down the trigger and letting the enemies come to you. No aiming is required, no reloading, or watching your heat. It's literally just as lazy as putting your finger on the mouse or trigger and keeping it there. But at the same time, it's kind of a one-trick pony, being a bug front beast while remaining underwhelming everywhere else. And I say this as a fan of this weapon, so don't think I'm trying to dog on this weapon too much, but it does need some improvements here and there. It has carried me through a lot of bug missions, especially when I was a newer player and when the Predator strain first came out. It's really that good against bugs. But that's all I have to say about the Blitzer and why it was forgotten. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. It helps a ton, and it means a lot.